Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. It is July 18th, 2023. Thanks so much for being with us today. We're back from a vacation, starting yesterday, actually, and it's good to be back talking to you today. We've got my good friend Patrick Rickards here. Pat is the CEO of the Driving Force Institute. He's going to tell you all about what they do for teaching history. But if you go over to untoldhistory.org, you're going to find out a lot about what he does, okay? The Driving Force Institute is really a great force in history education, and Pat's going to tell you all about it. He'll do a better job than I will. And the 250th anniversary of the United States is coming up, so this is important stuff. There's a lot of controversy regarding history education, and social studies education. So we'll see what's going on from Pat's point of view. Please go over and check out All We Do, which is where we're going to archive this podcast over at the ace-ed.org, ace-ed.org. That's the home website of our American Consortium for Equity and Education, ace-ed.org, and the podcasts are there. The magazine is over there, Equity and Access. Okay, tons of other information, etc. Our awards program, which we hope you'll get involved in. You'll see the icon over there for our Excellence in Equity Awards. We got a lot of stuff going over there, and it's all for you, and it's all free at ace-ed.org. And I hope you go over there and tell your friends about it and work with us, sign up. There's no dollars changing hands. Believe me, everything is free for you guys, okay? So check it all out. And by the way, if you ever want to get in touch with me to suggest a guest or a podcast topic, it's Larry at ace-ed.org. Larry at ace-ed.org, and we welcome your comments, your thoughts, your ideas, etc., etc. Now we're going to head down to, I think, the heat of South Carolina. I doubt if it's really cool down there right now. That's where Pat is. Pat, how are you? How's South Carolina today?
Good morning, Larry. It's great to speak with you. Yeah, no, it's been hot. It's going to be 98 or so today, so we'll be good.
Wintertime. There you go. Wintertime in South Carolina. Who would have thought?
Exactly.
But, this isn't that heat dome, is it? Because it's always hot and sticky down there. I used to go down there in the summer in South Carolina this time of year. I mean, how bad is it considered like the last couple of years? I mean, it's always this hot and gooey down there. It's a great state. I love it.
It's the same. Yeah. It's the same. It's one of those, and you go anywhere else. My parents are down in Florida, and the heat's the same when I go visit them too. So, this is the new world order.
It is the new, not up here in Maine. Up here in Maine, we're having great weather. Now, everybody can make fun of me in February, okay? But right now, we're having great weather, okay? And I just hope it continues. And I feel bad for everybody under all this heat. It is brutal out there right now. And poor folks in Phoenix, I was reading this today, Pat, they've had 18 days or something over 110. 18 days in a row. Yeah. So it's hard. It's hard for people, and I just hope everybody stays healthy, et cetera, et cetera. You too, my friend, go out and feed the alligators, okay? Just do that. All right. What can I tell you? I want you to tell everybody about the Driving Force Institute. I know what you do, but I'd rather you just tell them what it is, because there's important anniversaries coming up, and as I said before, there's a lot of controversy out there regarding American history, and your website is untoldhistory.org, and a lot of the stuff that's untold is a lot of the controversial stuff, in my opinion, that needs to be told. Okay, so give everybody the word about the DFI and what's going on.
Sure. No, it's funny. Yesterday I was speaking at the White House Historical Association's Educators Conference. And I realized as I was talking to them, I was explaining that every year I seem to say that there's never been a more challenging year to be a K-12 social studies teacher than this year. And each year it seems to trump it.
It gets worse.
I think that's, at the end of the day, Driving Force Institute got started because we were trying to figure out how can we make the teaching and learning of American history more interesting and relevant to today's students. We knew from surveys we did with high school students that at the time they found American history to be boring. They found it to be irrelevant to their lives. They found it to be mostly stories of dead white landowners that they didn't relate to. And so the question was, is there anything that we could do? I mean, they actually told us the only subject they found more boring than learning history was having to learn art in high school. And so it was, what could we do? And, it's recognizing that for today's learners, they're all digital natives. They were born with cell phones in their hands. They're not going to sit down and read a 600-page Basel textbook and find joy in it. Let's just put it that way. And so, we decided, what can we do? How can we begin to tell these untold stories about the people, the places, the events, the artifacts that shaped American history that you're too often not going to find in the textbook? How do you find those stories that talk about how women and the BIPOC community have been involved in the foundations and the development of this nation? And so, common sense says, you look at the average high schooler. I've got two of them in my house. My son will be a senior this fall. My daughter will be a junior. They live online. I can't tell you probably in the course of a day how many TikToks my daughter will consume. But I know they spend a lot of time on YouTube. And so what we've done is we've told these short stories, these short video films. We try to be as provocative as possible. They're each about 2 minutes long. And they capture just a bite of history to try to make it interesting, to try to get individuals to go down the rabbit hole, to try to get them to ask those questions. Well, if I wasn't taught this, what else have you not been teaching me? And that's really what we set out to do. And so now it is about 3.5 years later. We've produced more than 500 films. We have about 45 million users. And it's really just a way to help teachers start the conversations. This is in no way meant to replace instruction. It's not going to replace the textbooks that every school district buys. But this is meant to start that discussion. It's meant to enhance it. So you're teaching American Revolution, and guess what? There were women, there were people of color that were involved in that as well. Even if it's not in your textbook, we can offer it to you now.
Yeah, it's really something that's a great way to bring that stuff up. Is there a charge? Do people have to pay?
No, absolutely not. Everything we do is free of charge. It's
available on. I just wanted you to say it. I knew that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Everything is free of charge. It's available on untoldhistory.org. It's also available on YouTube. So hopefully, if you are an educator, one of those two means will not be blocked by the firewalls in your school district.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be my next question. You talk to a lot of educators yesterday. You talk to them all the time. Your stuff is excellent, in my opinion. All the materials you produce out there, it's just terrific. Okay, when you talk to educators, how are they? And I know you have 45 million users. Please don't misunderstand this question, but are they using it? Are they facing controversy? What are you hearing from the folks out there in the trenches about all this? And by the way, I want to make the point. I think you're doing the right thing. Okay, but there's a lot of controversy going on out there, so I want to hear what you're hearing.
There is a lot of controversy, and I think that some of it is we create these sort of self-fulfilling prophecies where we expect there's going to be controversy, and therefore it's there. What I can tell you is when I talk to teachers, we've created, as I said, more than 500 films to date.
Yep.
And if you are someone on the far left, you are going to find films that are going to make your blood boil. If you are someone on the far right, the same is going to be true. What we've done is we've tried to present as broad a scope of American history as possible. So the thought here is if you're an educator, you're not going to use all 500 films. But you are going to be able to find those films that will enhance your practice. That means there are some films that aren't for you. But I will tell you, it becomes very interesting. When I always love telling the story, Larry. You probably heard me tell this one before. One of the first films that we created is we had teachers telling us, how do we explain the 10th Amendment? How do we explain states' rights to students when this is just it's an issue that even lawyers sometimes can't understand. Mm-hmm. And so we created a film on states' rights where we used the topic of hotboxing. We used marijuana laws. The notion that you could go ahead and you could buy marijuana in Denver, but you couldn't fly to my state of South Carolina with it because then it would be illegal. Great video, perfect illustration of what states' rights are all about. And had some, as you can imagine, some teachers saying, there's no way in the world that we can use a video about marijuana in the classroom. Heard that specifically as part of our work in Kentucky, where we're working with Kentucky teachers, as you know, to also help teach Kentucky history. And so I said, okay, I understand that.
Safe, by the way.
This film is not for everyone. So we sit down in Kentucky and we say, what films do we have to create for you and your students that are going to be most applicable, that are going to be most necessary to teach Kentucky history? And wouldn't you know, one of the first things they say is, well, we need a film on the history of Kentucky whiskey. So everybody approaches this a little differently. But I will tell you, Larry, it's one of those, if you look, we've got some of our early videos where we're talking about things like the 1619 Project and talking with its author. And that's obviously going to get some people riled up. But we've also been producing video content for the state of Florida that aligns with their state standards, that meets their needs, that addresses, some of the, when you talk about Florida and their call to make sure that we're teaching American exceptionalism, you find those in some of our videos too. At the end of the day, when you're teaching American history to kindergartners in Florida, there shouldn't be a political viewpoint when you're teaching who is George Washington, who is Daniel Webster, what is Independence Day. And so we try to make sure there's just a little bit for everybody there. Every film is not going to be for you, but the majority of them will be.
And you just mentioned kindergarten. What grades is when you do a film in a unit? What grades are you aiming at? How do you do that?
Well, most of our films are geared toward high school students because we know, that's the one time. So. Unfortunately, I wish I could say that we teach American history every year. We don't. In some states, you only teach American history twice in the course of K-12. And so everything that we've developed is geared toward high school students. But I say that in that the content is created in such a way that if you're in college and you want to use this, it's still applicable. If you're in middle school, if you're a middle school teacher and you want to use it, it's still applicable. We've recognized, and I think educators know this, from their own experiences, that the worst thing in the world you can do is to dumb down content because you think that a student's not going to be able to handle it.
That's the worst.
So even if you look at something,
got to be rigorous. That's the word, rigor.
Yeah, Florida pushed us. Florida said, well, we've also got standards in K-3. What can we do for K-3? And so we've created content that addresses those K-3 standards. But if you want, there's nothing that would stop a middle schooler or even a high schooler from learning something from those videos.
And it's set to Florida standards, okay? But if we're talking to teachers, teachers from all over the country will be listening to this show. So if I'm in Idaho, I could use that, right?
I would think if I'm in Idaho, if I'm up in Maine, if I'm in New York City, there is value in teaching a kindergartner something like who is Daniel Webster or what does Labor Day mean. Those are Florida standards. They're applicable across the board. Those
are okay things. Daniel Webster, he's the one with the devil. He made the deal with the devil, right? I saw that movie.
Indeed.
Just kidding. Okay. So 250, the country was founded in 1776. Okay. 250th anniversary is coming up. Okay. Talk to me. What are you doing about that? And I haven't heard much about that.
You haven't.
No.
It's funny. I mean, I remember as a kid, and it shows you how old I am. I remember as a kid when we were celebrating our nation's bicentennial. And how interesting. And I will tell you, for decades after that, my father still flew the bicentennial flag along with the American flag outside of our house.
I'd say your dad is a presidential historian, and I want people to know that. Okay, Dr. Rickards is the famous. Not that this one's less famous. Okay, Dad is the presidential historian.
Yes, he is.
It's true.
Yes, he is. So we've been thinking, what is it we can do? And I recognize that we always cringe in this country when we start talking about national curriculum, and nobody wants that. But we've spent a lot of time the last few years talking about how can we tell those untold stories that folks don't know. And so what the Driving Force Institute is now doing is we're now focusing our attentions on the essential stories. And so really looking, as we get ready to celebrate our 250th anniversary, how can we create a comprehensive video curriculum of American history?
Yeah.
And so we are partnering with a very well-known national foundation, which we're still signing the paperwork this week. You're the first to hear about this, Larry.
Breaking news. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. So we will be producing between now and the 250th anniversary. So in 2026, we are going to be producing a 500 episode video series of American history that can be used in K-12 classrooms across the country.
How many videos do you have now? 500?
We have about 500, so we're going to double in the next 3 years.
Wow. You know, who do you write them? The videos? Who writes them, and how do you get them produced? I'm just curious.
No, we have people far smarter than I who write these things.
How could that be, Pat? How could that be?
We work. All of this is very deliberate, and so and we're fine tuning this process for developing this new essentials curriculum as well. What we do is we work with the experts. We have those who are classroom teachers. We have those who are historians. We have those, who know what connects best with learners who go through the process. And so they will sit down, and every title that we have a tip sheet that really goes through the history, that goes through the key points, that goes through what we want to emphasize. And from there, a script is developed. And each of those scripts goes through multiple rounds of edits to make sure that it is accurate, to make sure that it is teachable, to make sure that it is interesting. And then from there, we move the scripts into production, where we start dealing with the original source visuals. We start dealing with all the animations, because most of our videos are animated. And so, the process takes several months for us to develop each film. And I am incredibly fortunate. I work with a terrific public production house called Makematic, which is actually based out in Ireland. I work with a group out in California called the Do-Goodery, which provides us some terrific subject matter experts and teachers who work with us. So it's a great team effort to make sure each one of these is produced in a way that they can be used.
Wow, that is fantastic. And it really is a big team that helps you put it together. How did you ever put all that together, for goodness sakes? Wow, smart guy.
Yeah.
Did good. That's a lot. That's a
lot.
You're really a movie. You're like a Louis B. Mayer. You're like a movie producer here.
Well, and then we have we are benefiting. I mean, we talk about the reach that we have, and we have a number of organizations, a number of companies that distribute these videos. So it's not just teachers who on their own are stumbling upon it on YouTube or on our website, but we have distribution channels. When you think of all of those teachers that have access to video content in their classroom. We're working with partners to make sure that they're getting in there, that we're part of the platform that they're providing. We're incredibly fortunate to be working with the American Federation of Teachers in their Share My Lesson.
Good.
Where you will see just about every month we have a new essay on whatever the month is, where we're showing resources that teachers can use to teach that subject matter. And AFT has just been enormously supportive in that regard.
I'm sure they have been, and that's good. And that's good news. And I'll tell you, I just got to say this too: history teachers, all teachers, okay, they need all the help they can get these days. They're under a lot of pressure, post-pandemic, all this controversy, Moms for Liberty, those screwballs, okay. And I can say that, Pat. You can't. Just say nothing, okay? Yeah, and I'm just so glad you're doing this work, because it's just more important now than it ever has been, because teachers need all the help we can get. And I have to say this, Pat, the more help we can give them, the more likely they are to stay at their job, because we have a serious challenge with teacher retention. And, this is all part and parcel of the challenge, okay? And you're really helping in that. I don't know. You don't think about that when you're doing this work, but it has an impact in that way as well. Okay.
I appreciate that, Larry. It's one of those things. I know. We've been fortunate to have a lot of great content partners, and one of them is the Smithsonian. And we did a video series for the Smithsonian. They're doing their big education summit in D.C. this week. It starts today and runs, I believe, through Thursday. And they've got a great stream. Smithsonian covers so many different topics, but one of the topics they're covering is really reckoning. I believe it's called "Reckoning with Our Racial Past." It's one of those things. I can only imagine how difficult it is, particularly with some of the issues we deal with in the classroom with CRT and other things, how difficult it can be for a teacher to want to teach about these things. And I think that every terrific history teacher that I've come across as part of this recognizes just how complex and complicated and messy American history is, and knows you can't teach American history without teaching about some of the racial issues.
I would hope.
And so, that's part of what we do. These videos are meant, to do that as well, and do so in a very factual, upfront way, but allows you, again, to have the discussions that need to be had in class. I mean, you and I have talked about this. I know so many teachers, because they fear the politics. This was even before Moms for Liberty. They feared, what was going to happen if they discussed what happened on January 6th in their classroom with their kids. And there's probably never a better teachable moment than that. But, it's one of those, you can look at our videos and you can look at things like, okay, how do we teach the War of 1812, and how do you teach the British coming in and burning down the White House? How do you teach the Puerto Rican nationalist terrorists coming to the U.S. House of Representatives and opening fire on the House floor in 1956? Those are the sorts of things we should be able to teach, because they become important to where we're going.
That's right. Okay, you can't know where you got to know where you are to know where you're going, okay, to get to where you're going. It's that simple, and we just got to make sure that. And, there's no problem with teaching, teaching and fiction, all the problems with library books, etc. That if it gets you riled up, that's good, okay? It may get you riled up because you don't agree with it. That's fine, okay? Go find out what you want to find out, okay? It moves you in that direction. But to just ignore it is so unhealthy. And I have to ask, are you in D.C. today, or are you down in SC today?
No, I'm down in South Carolina today. I could not make it up
surprised.
to D.C., so I'm joining the Smithsonian for some of its virtual pieces.
And when you spoke to the White House yesterday, the White House group, were you in D.C.?
They actually do both. They have both an in-person and a virtual conference, and so I was fortunate enough to meet with their virtual people. Yeah,
it's no cooler, literally temperature-wise, in D.C. right now than it is in the SC. I got to tell you. All right, it's unbelievable. Hey, I wanted to ask you this: the Walter Buckley Prize. Okay, you just awarded. I want to know about this. I don't think I do know about it. Okay,
sure.
A woman named, and I have this note from you. A woman named Louise Mirror, I believe, won the prize in American history. Who is she? What's the prize? Talk about that. That's a nice honor to her, Ms. Muir. Though
absolutely.
I don't know.
Love talking about this.
Sure.
And so Walter Buckley is a dear friend and is a great supporter of the improvement of the teaching and learning of American history, and has been an inspiration for me since before we launched the Driving Force Institute.
Nice.
And so this year we awarded the first, and it'll be the first of many. It's not going to be one of those where you say the first inaugural and it never happens again.
Thank you.
But we awarded the first Walter W. Buckley Jr. Prize in American history. And the intention of this prize is to really celebrate those individuals who represent the best in terms of teaching and learning of American history, and elevating the subject and elevating the work in ways that truly benefit our civil society. And so I was just so happy this year that we were able to award this to Dr. Louise Mirror. Dr. Mirror is the president and CEO of the New York Historical Society. She is an historian by trade. She's a former higher ed administrator. But she has done just some incredible things when you look. And I do this not just, and I'm so proud that New York Historical Society has been a longtime partner of ours. But that's not why we gave it to her. When you really look at what she has been able to do at the museum, particularly over the last 3 years.
What museum?
You're talking about
museum? Wait a minute. What
this
museum?
is the New York Historical Society.
Is that in New York City or up in Albany?
It is. It is. And I think you and I probably, you think of historical societies, I have an image of what they look like in Maine, where you have this sort of very small building with one person who mans a couple of glass cases.
It's a little better than that.
That's not what New York
It's a little better
is.
in Portland, by the way. So wait a minute, where is Louise's museum? Is it in Albany or is it in New York City?
Nope, it is in New York City.
New York City.
And they have just some incredible collections of materials. but they are also such a major force in educating New York City school children and bringing them in to see, you're talking about original source material from the Revolutionary War and things that donors had given to them. And she had to figure out very quickly how to make it all virtual. How do you replace all of those school trips?
Wow.
And they've done that, and they've just done some incredible work at figuring out how to digitize what they have, how to make videos available to their students, how to launch new initiatives in things like democracy, where they're teaching democracy. It is a tremendous event, a tremendous place rather. If you ever have the chance to go, it's worth the stop. And it's always interesting to see what new things they have, because it's one of those libraries that if you go in, you look at some of the rotating exhibits. When I was up there back in March, for instance, they had the history of the Jewish deli that was there, which is it's different. But they also have, they face, the same challenges you and I keep talking about in American history. You go on one side of the building, and it's great. They have a statue of Frederick Douglass. On another side, they have a statue of Abraham Lincoln. But during the last few years, they were faced great pressure because they also, within the building, had a statue of Thomas Jefferson. And so you had, some of the advocates, some of the protesters in New York City felt we need to remove the Jefferson statue because he once held slaves and he didn't free them upon his death like George Washington did. And I give Dr. Muir all the credit in the world because, we've seen it. It would have been so easy to simply say that the statue is no longer is being moved so that they could rotate other things there. And the library didn't do that. The New York Historical Society stood strong and made very clear that Thomas Jefferson is part of our history. They're willing to teach the full history, but they were not going to remove it because some people found it to be not worthy. And so I think when you look at her character, when you look at her work, when you look at just the impact that New York Historical Society is having, it was just a great honor to be able to give this to Dr. Muir.
That is great, George. Congratulations, Louise, though I don't even know you. What Pat just said about you is pretty cool.
And the beauty of this is, you and I are used to in education, you give somebody an award and you give them a nice little plaque or a nice little trophy, and we did that. Dr. Muir got that. But she also was able to receive a $30,000 contribution to the New York Historical Society. Nice. She could choose the nonprofit of her choice. And so she's directed that to continue work at the New York Historical Society.
Fantastic. Congratulations, buddy. That is just great. Okay, I got to tell you, congratulations to her. You put it all together. Okay, so it's a good synergy there. I got to tell you. And one last thing before we go, you're writing a book. Is this book, and I have a note, the book from classroom teachers on the importance of history. Are you actually
exactly? I will be. I have to be fully clear. I am editing a book. And the book will be out before the end of the month, Larry, and so I will get a copy to you as soon as possible.
Please do.
It's called Why History Matters, and it's a collection of essays from educators across the country, award-winning educators, that are explaining how they make sure that their students understand the importance of American history, how they make sure that their students are engaged in their classrooms, even to the point you've been asking me about today. How do we teach some of these difficult subjects?
Yeah.
And so this is coming right from the pens of those teachers who are in the trenches, on the front lines each and every day, doing this important work. And so we thought it was important. I always get that question from a lot of folks. It's sort of, why does history matter? Why do I spend my life focusing on this stuff? Why does history matter? And so I decided, rather than my always explaining it, it's far better for us to let teachers explain it themselves, those who've committed their lives to it. And so this collection of essays, we put together a book. It will, as I said, it will be available by the end of the month on Amazon. It's called Why History Matters.
But by the end of
and
this
all
month,
of the proceeds from the book will be donated.
It'll be ready by the end of July. We're gonna do another podcast on this. I'll talk to you today when the book's done.
Sounds good.
Okay, and I want to maybe even want to bring one of the authors on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Teachers.
I think they would love that.
Yeah, it would be great. I would love to do that because I think it's really an important topic. And what's the book going to be called?
It's Why History Matters.
Well, you said that. It sunk in for a minute, then it left. Welcome to my aging process. Okay, why history matters. Okay, this is good, and it's good. And are you're the editor, edited by Patrick Rickards.
I am the editor. I wrote an introductory chapter just to sort of set the tone. But most of the 200 pages are right from classroom teachers across the country.
I can't wait to read it. It's important stuff, and I can't wait to read it. I am going to nag you to get a copy of it.
Of course.
Okay?
Happy to.
I promise you. Okay, and then we're going to do another podcast on it because I think it's really, really, really important. Pat, this was great. Thanks for being here, buddy. I appreciate it. And I appreciate all the support you give us with all the work we do. Okay, you're always
Of course. I appreciate it, Larry. I appreciate you.
Thanks, buddy. It's a mutual appreciation society, and I mean it. Okay? Now go get yourself some alligator bits for lunch. Is that what you're going to have?
Yes, sir.
There you go. Enjoy them. Okay? Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Larry. Bye.
Bye. Okay, everybody. That's Pat Rickards. It's a Driving Force Institute, and it's untoldhistory.org. All right, so please go over there and check it out. And while you're checking out things on the internet, remember we are at ace-ed.org. And everything's free for you over there. You want to get in touch with me? It's Larry at ace-ed.org. And on that note, I'm Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. Thanks for listening.